Pretty close building, pretty close
They're
proximity.
connected. Island.
Okay, I'm going to call the committee of the whole meeting to order, Tuesday, October 10th, 2018 at 5:24 PM. Roll call.
Alderman Madden.
Here.
Alderman Kubaki.
Here.
Alderman Engelhardt.
Here.
Alderman Kapusta.
Here.
Alderman Borgman.
Here.
Alderman Hamel is absent. Alderman Wolf.
Here.
Mayor Shavarati.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
And statement of public notice.
Meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
Approval of the September 25th, 2018 minutes.
Motion approved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. New business, but the first thing we have to do is Sharon has to provide an update of some maybe not all so good news.
Testing?
It's on.
All right. So yes, not so good news. Our transportation aids came in, and if you want to look at the handout titled Budget Updates and Proposed Appropriations, our transportation aids actually came in about $84,000 under what we had in the budget. So in order to offset that, our shared revenues actually came in up $4,600, and we have additional personal property aids of $39,000. So that left a deficit of $40,450. And on the expenditure side, we had a few changes with staff with health insurance. So in the public safety category, it was approximately $25,000 of shifting from family coverage to in lieu of. Also in the information technology department, another $5,450. We are considering transitioning to a new flexible spending plan, which will eliminate the fees, which would save the city $4,000. We had a reduction in conference and training of $1,000 and engineering service fees due to filling of a vacant position, which should satisfy that need for a reduction of $5,000. So the two expenditure reductions and revenue would balance. So I would ask if anybody had any issues or concerns with the adjustments.
It was just to bring us back in to a balanced budget from what we presented. That was a pretty big hit, though, for transportation aids. So.
Yes, yes. And basically, the response from DOT was that other communities had larger pots or money being spent on transportation projects, so more of the money was allocated towards them. And it's based off of a 5-year average, so this past year wasn't as high, so a large year dropped off, and we picked up a lower cost year. So there were two issues.
Yep, and that will fluctuate.
So the rebuilding of Moreland wasn't counted in that?
It's actually still in progress. We haven't expended it. We've just started incurring the large invoices, so it will be picked up in after this year closes out.
But it doesn't help our transportation.
It will
needs.
next year. Yeah. Next year it should go back on.
Yeah, so how's that impact next year?
What was that?
How would that impact what they're doing next year then?
Don't know.
As far as sharing?
Well, it would depend what the governor, what he approves, but I haven't heard anything where they would be making any reductions.
They're doing a lot of large borrowing right now, so I don't know how it's going to impact us next year.
Yeah, we're not sure. We won't know until probably
No way
next
to know that.
September.
No way to know that, okay.
Yeah.
Is everybody's microphone on? Just to make sure.
I was talking that way.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon, even though it wasn't the best of news. Now, before we get into this, we do have someone here who would like to speak from the senior taxi, Karen Nickel, the executive director. Is everyone okay with letting her present to you quickly? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Shavarati and council members, for this opportunity to share. I'm Karen Nickel. I met most of you.
Really get on the mic.
We are going to have to get close
Okay.
to it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Karen Nickel, Director of the Taxi, as Kathy mentioned. I'd like to share a few thoughts on behalf of the Board of Directors for the Taxi and the families we serve. 12 years ago, some of you might remember, a survey was done by the city which determined a need for public transit for seniors and adults with disabilities who couldn't drive to their own appointments or shop and participate in the community. By request of the mayor at that time, a group of community volunteers organized and established the Muskego Senior Taxi, now a 501c3 non-for-profit organization serving Muskego and the surrounding communities, and has for 10 years. As the population grew and opportunities to get and provide services grew, so did our demand for transportation. We're now 5 times the size we were 10 years ago, which means we've grown from offering 1 taxi vehicle running occasional trips up to 4 taxis running 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and covering 9,000 miles a month, providing 600 rides for the community. We will be adding another car this year thanks to a community member donation, and will be up to 5 taxis, which will satisfy the growth that we expect. Our expenses have grown from $5,000 a month to more than $15,000 a month to cover the increased need for car maintenance, insurance, gas, and daily staffing. We run as efficient an operation as possible by utilizing donated space from the Muskego Regency for our office and to park our vehicles, by applying for county grants for vehicle expansion and replacements, by organizing more than 30 community volunteers to provide daily rides, which adds up to about 5,000 service hours a year, saving us $50,000 in driver costs. Our primary income from the rides are rider fares, county grants, community donations, private grants, and an annual fundraiser that we work year-round on to plan and execute. Donations are going down for all nonprofits, and private grants are extremely competitive, so we need to request additional funding to secure a portion of the annual funding needed for the current expanded operation of the taxi and the continued growth we expect. According to the Regional Planning Commission, the Waukesha County population is expected to increase 10% every 5 years, and 20% of that population are either 75 or older or young people with disabilities who require transportation assistance. We currently serve about 200 families, so we expect to serve 300 and ride at least 10,000 miles a month in a few years. We've been writing as many private grant applications as possible to address our growth and make up for the reduction of community donations, but private donation dollars we can't count on because there is heavy competition for them. We really believe that since our city residents receive the greatest benefit from this service, that the city should continue to support this community service at the level needed to meet the needs of residents. Since it was the city that initiated the service, we hope that it will stand by its commitment to meeting the needs of its growing community and increase its contribution according to the growth in transportation needs. From the $5,000 a year, which was appropriate with the 1 or 2 taxis, up to $15,000 for running 4 or more vehicles, which we expect to continue to need. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Our board president, Jim Nichols, has an interest in saying a few words as well, if that's okay. He has the 10-year history with the organization.
It's up to the council members.
I'm good with it.
Okay, come on up.
There isn't a whole lot left to say. Karen pretty much said it all, but I see the need, and I talk to the folks that are using the taxi and the families that it affects. It not only affects the riders that we're transporting, but it deeply affects the families as well. As without this service, families are scrambling, trying to figure out how to get mom or dad to their dental or their medical appointments, and or how to get their sons and daughters to their jobs and training. And so it's just kudos to the city, first of all, for coming up with the committee 12 years ago that did this that came up with the survey, but then also to put in motion and request that we would get this service started. There's two of us remaining, two remaining founders, myself and Glenda Holm. And so we've just shown commitment throughout the 12 years of this process. And again, we really appreciate the city's help in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say a few words too, if I could.
Certainly.
As they stated, the senior taxi is not here because somebody had an altruistic motive or something. It was asked for by the council. The council established it. We said we need to do this. Now we're at the point where we have to provide more support for them. You can only do so much fundraising, and you can only do so many things with the money that we have. As was mentioned, we serve two groups of people. We serve the seniors. Today I took two men to two different trips. They're both suffering with Alzheimer's, and they have needs during the day. I've taken people to the doctor. I've taken people to the dentist. I've taken some elderly women to get their hair done, and we also serve some young adults who have disabilities which prevent them from driving a car. However, they can still work. And in the time that I've been driving, which is just over 2.5 years, we've actually had two of those young adults transition from living with their families to living on their own. They've been able to hold jobs down and earn enough money to support themselves in an apartment building. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help those people make the most of their life and get the best quality of life they can. But like I said, this was, we established this as a council. And now we just have to step up, I feel, and give them a few more dollars. The $5,000 is a very small portion, was a large portion when it was started, but now it's a much smaller portion as the service has grown so much over the years. So I'm asking you to reconsider the $5,000 donation that we give to the senior taxi and increase it. And the senior taxi has asked for $15,000, which I hope you feel is appropriate.
Go ahead.
I think, Neil, I think you and I are the only ones sitting here that were on council at that time when this happened. And I seem to recall that when we did that, we said we wanted to help fund it until they could get self-supportive. And it never reached that point. My concern today is our budget is really pretty much ready to be done, and I'm not sure what $15,000 would do to it today. And I know I personally wasn't even expecting it. Are any of the drivers paid, or is their salary going out? Is it all volunteer, or is it not?
We have one driver who's paid. All the other drivers are, like myself, were volunteers. I think today we probably had 5 or 6 people driving. Not full days, but portions of the days. And we only have one person who is paid.
It's a great service. I would hate to see anything happen to it. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. My concern is the fact that they never, instead of getting closer to being self-sufficient, they're getting farther from being self-sufficient.
Well, the portion from the city is seemingly larger, but the budget has grown so much that they are actually getting closer to financing the whole thing, or raising a lot more money than they have in the past. But the need is just growing faster than our fundraising ability.
What fees are charged, Neil?
Karen, you want to help me on some of that?
Yeah, can you come to the microphone, because it's not going to go into our system? Thank you.
Sure. The fees vary by distance, so we will travel as far as 30 minutes from our location, and the majority of our senior riders have what's called the shared fare card, which is a county discount card. And so with that card, it's a $5 ride within Muskego. And then it goes up from there. We go as far as St. Luke's Hospital, which is $25. We make very frequent visits to areas between New Berlin and Greendale that are between $8 and $9.
How many changes have taken place in the pricing?
I came on in 2014 and saw the need for a price increase, and so we increased the prices on these shared fare cards at that time. This past year, we also increased the fares to the long-term care agency and the Department of Workforce Development, which we're contracted with to support the young people with disabilities.
And those are reimbursed, correct?
Yes. Right, so we've made every effort to gradually make the necessary increases, and we're trying to be sensitive to the fact that these riders are low-income riders based on their ability to earn wages, or senior citizens that are living on Social Security. So that's why we do so much fundraising and ask for your help in keeping those costs under control.
Do some of those sources regulate how much is allowed to be
Yes,
given for
we
reimbursements?
thanks for that question, John. We had also in 2015 requested a rate increase from those agencies, but were denied. So that's when the heavy-duty grant writing started, because we didn't want to turn anyone away, and up until this point, we haven't had to. We found a way to take everyone who needs a ride 600 times a month, with 30 volunteers graciously donating their time. And you might or might not know that these volunteers are screened by the police department, they're screened by our insurance company, they're screened by our volunteer coordinator to have the, not only the safety background, but also the sensitivity to work with people with disabilities and senior citizens. So you can't compare us to an Uber or something like that, which people like to toss around. We take great care of our families.
I'd just like to jump. Did
Go ahead.
you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
I just want to jump in real quick. First of all, I want to say it is a great program. I was seated on the taxi board for a while there.
Thank you.
And I was not part of the council when it started, but I remember reading an article that it was seed money, I think, that was started so that it would be self-sufficient. The only reason I say that, I don't want to harm the program, but you need to understand that I get regular calls, if you remember, from the Eagles Wing. They're a free healthcare clinic. They moved out of the city, but they keep calling me. They want to move back. They've always asked for funding. And it's a slippery slope, so I just want you to understand a new program could start. So I don't mean anything bad, but you just have to understand the situation we find ourselves in. So I just want you to have that thought. Lastly, you have to raise the levy here to do this, because we have a balanced budget right now.
Right.
So there's no extra money right now.
So do we have kind of an estimate, if we did choose to raise it, what impact that would have?
Well, whatever you do now, you're raising the levy from what we've got in the budget.
Yeah, but just how much would that impact?
Sharon, come on up.
Go in, Sharon.
And as long as you're gonna, where would the funds
We're
come from?
actually
An increase.
fairly tight because of that personal property aid adjustment, so we wouldn't even have enough. We would need another $10,000 in the budget, so we would have to look elsewhere besides the levy, actually, because I think we only have about $8,000 remaining. I'd have to double check on that. So we would have to find someplace else to fund the 10,000, basically, or at least a couple thousand. So it would mean either an expenditure reduction somewhere else or inflating revenues somehow, which I would not recommend.
Well, I think we could I think we could do a little bit, couldn't we? Why can't we raise levy? I mean,
We're pretty much at the max right now.
$10,000 on that budget was not going to,
It's a levy limit, where we
Yes.
can
The
only
state-
go up, right,
yes.
yep.
The state
We're
mandate.
capped out.
It
We're
requires a
already raising it.
referendum.
Yeah, because we're already
You're
going up
talking
100.
about that much on a budget of this much.
Well, the other side of
We
this is
have to go to
we've got,
referendum to raise it higher.
we do have
No.
many organizations that do wonderful things for the city. And
However-
at the 11th hour, it's difficult for us to take a look at the entire budget picture.
I did hand this out back on May 22nd to
sorry.
everybody before we started the budget process. I handed out the letter that was to everybody.
Yep.
But it
The
never came up-
representative on the
right, but
committee
we
could have-
Never came up for
It never
discussion
came up
at
for
all.
discussion.
Yeah, agreed. It
I
didn't.
remember seeing that, but yeah. And it wasn't like a necessity when it was given to us. I didn't realize that. But I have a couple questions. You brought up family, have difficulties rearranging their life to help their other family members. That's what family members do. Maybe they need to be involved a little bit more and step up and use their self to take some of these people around. Not always possible and everything. I understand that.
Can I make a comment about that? Because the families are taking care of these young adults for the rest of their lives,
Well, I'm talking about
they're not
everybody
going
in
through the
general.
process of going to college and
Well,
eventually.
I understand all that. I'm
But
just
the
making a
point is,
statement.
they're having to save for trust funds for those individuals and do a lot more than what most of us have to do.
Well, I understand that. But there's senior people too involved that have kids and whatever that.
Many of them
So-
don't live in this area anymore.
Well, I understand that too, but, if they're in next community over, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. Are we reaching out to them for donations as well?
No,
Yes, they come to our fundraiser, our annual fundraiser, they purchase tickets, they provide auction items, they volunteer at the events, they do all they can.
It's nice to move away and have someone else take care of your loved ones.
no, that's unfair.
No, I'm just saying
unfair.
that they can do more than just a fundraiser. I'm just trying to look for other answers here. The service area, the question I have, it's called a Muskego taxi, and we're serving other areas besides Muskego?
Just the areas close by, and part of that is just to make sure all those four cars are filled at all times to be as efficient as possible. Sometimes we double up. So if we can pick up somebody from here and then go to New Berlin and go down to St. Luke's Hospital, there's a cost savings for us to do that.
Okay, so we're not leaving the area, picking up people and then going? We're
We
not,
start in Muskego and we pick
but
up
we're
people
not using an
from,
empty car and leaving the area and picking up people
we
outside?
try
the-
not to, yeah. we
But you
try.
do that?
We do if that's the only request and it's an important
I'm
need
just-
for
I'm just
someone to
trying
get a
figure out how
cancer
we got this-
treatment or.
How we got this started here. I'm just trying to get a little history here. And then, has payroll gone up?
Only slightly in the fact that because our volume has increased so much, we started with just myself, who was administrator, volunteer coordinator, bookkeeper, driver, everything, to now adding a part-time scheduler in the morning and an afternoon volunteer coordinator and billing person in the afternoon.
And then you mentioned donations are going down, but if we're taking these people to local businesses and stuff, are we making them aware that we're bringing these people to them, that we're asking for donations as well? Are we
We are.
receiving that from them?
Yes, we are. Not large donations,
Well, I understand that,
unfortunately,
yeah, I
but some
understand.
donations, yes. Yes, we are actually supported quite a bit by community businesses, even the ones that aren't involved in serving the seniors. The community really wants this to stay, and I feel like we've tapped them out, to be honest with you. They're all doing what they can.
No, I understand that. And then, now you started with this originally?
No,
No,
I
you-
started in 2014.
2014, okay. Okay, then, that's fine, thanks.
Sure.
You mentioned Eagle's Wings, and I'm familiar with them too, because I know the person who runs it, but they were not formed by the city. Senior Taxi was formed by the city. And I keep going back to that. I think we have an obligation. We as a council asked for this to happen. It happened. I think we have to continue to support it. It has they are taking on more and more of their budget each year, but the budget is growing at such an exponential rate that that's not happening.
Can I also add that there will not likely be an alternative to the taxi service at any time soon. We are actually being asked from the county to support their needs and try to add some of their rides to our service. There are quite a number of groups meeting now to talk about the Waukesha County Transportation Challenge, and they're looking for us to find a way to supplement. We haven't, committed to anything. We want to make sure we can serve our own area first, but the point is the county won't be able to step in and help Muskego out of the transportation jam, if you will.
I think we need to consider, that this is uniquely different than just a common charity for our community. This is something that we've tried to spur on and bring about because it is something we feel our community definitely needs, and it has to have some system to make it work. The system that we've come to or created here was a result of effort by, as it's been said, by the council, and so therefore the city has helped to create this. I think we have reason to think about helping to sustain it, especially when our senior population continues to grow in this city.
Is the county support inadequate?
The county supports every taxi service equally. Is it inadequate? I guess I would say yes. We've asked for increased funding, and they cannot tell us from year to year how much they can give us. We get 16.5 added to our budget for operations, and so we use that for insurance and whatever else we need it for. But I guess I would answer to that. We'd love to see more, but we get that through the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and we get whatever they decide to allot us each year.
And I think that's the area where we need to either push or meet with them and have that increased.
Yeah, because we're picking up their shortfall.
Especially if they want to move more over here. Yeah.
Got a question for Sharon. Without raising the levy, is there any other mechanism for getting the additional funding at all? Because I see you moving all those papers around.
Back to the levy,
Yep.
we do have one other
You got to get closer to the
category.
microphone.
Back to the levy, we have one other category. It's unused levy capacity. Per state statute, we could tap into that. There's about $20,000, but it would require a 2/3 majority vote by the council, and our debt has to be less than in the prior year, which it would be because when we refunded at a lower level. So that would be an option. Otherwise, you're looking at $10,000. You could potentially reduce the road program, which I don't know if you want to do that, but
I don't
10,000
recommend that.
I'm just thinking,
I
I'm
know,
throwing
I
out
know.
ideas for the council, that's all I'm doing, is looking.
Would we be
Yes,
able-
you could look at various, expenditures, the larger ones, which, $10,000 out of 800, 700 some thousand dollars is low, so I'm looking at the larger expenditure.
Where is the 5,000 coming from right now?
That's just in our public works, or non-departmental operating budget.
Environmental?
Non-departmental. Non-departmental.
It's
It's in this one on
subsidized
page
by,
15.
it's in the operating subsidized by tax dollars, if that's what you're asking.
And then I do have another question for the taxi. How do we come up with 15,000, around $10,000 increase? I mean, how do we, is this a every year is a one-time ad?
I'm sorry?
Are you
Wait,
looking-
is that what I'm requesting?
Well, you're going from 5,000 to
Yeah.
15. How did you come
Right.
up with around $10,000? I mean, instead of
Well, it's 3 times as much
$7,288.
per month. I went from $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month in costs. So it's an increase of $10,000 a month.
Can you tell us what that money would be used for?
That's what I'm
it
trying
would
to find
be?
out.
Yeah.
How did you get to the round?
Sure,
dollar
sure.
amount?
The money is used for the auto maintenance, the auto insurance, the gasoline, the normal operating expenses that you have in any office. We run computers, printers.
I guess the bigger question is, you're assuming that you're going to need 10,000 more, or do you know specifically where you need that 10,000 in addition?
Yeah, we need an additional, we need that for our operating costs. That's how much our operating costs overall.
So without that money, you would be out of business?
We need that to be sure that we can continue to operate the taxi successfully. So what we're trying to do is take out what the unknowns. So what we know is our demand is going to be at least the same, that our cost is going to be 3 times as much. What we don't know is whether we're going to be able to raise as much money with grant dollars, whether we are going to raise as much money with fundraising. We have a lot of unknowns in the money that we get back.
So one of the things in that short time that I sat on the board, one of the things I remember that I thought was a nice feature, but now I'm going, I wonder. I know we talked about how some people will call and want to ride to Potawatomi, and are we still doing that? I mean, that's obviously not a need.
Well, we don't currently have any limitations on where people can go. So socialization is part of someone's overall well-being. So we did have a lady who was depressed, and her husband in his will provided her money to go to Potawatomi. So that was a special situation, but it benefited her overall well-being.
That's not the bulk.
Pardon me?
That's not the bulk of the rides.
No, the bulk of the rides, thank you, are to medical appointments. So one of the gentlemen who's been with us our full 10 years started out having kidney failure. He got taken to New Berlin for dialysis. Then he qualified for a kidney transplant. So we went to St. Luke's, and we took him back forth to his appointments at the hospital. Now we do his frequent lab tests right here in town because Aurora has the clinics here now. So he's been sort of under our care, if you will, the entire time. And that's a big part of what we do, is we respond to people's changing needs. So that 250 family member that I mentioned, those needs change all the time. So depending on their health, maybe they have a fall and they have to go to rehab, for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, then they have a heart problem, and then they have to have lab tests and in the morning. And so we accommodate whatever situation that they're in. Like I said, the young people, they will often start out through the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation to get training, and then we get to follow them to their jobs that they're trained for out in the community and provide those rides. So it's really been an honor and a privilege, and I hope you can help us maintain it.
Are there any parallel sources available to Muskego?
In Muskego, no.
To Muskego even?
To Muskego.
Is there any place people can call and say, I need a ride, can you come and get me?
There are, but it'll cost more.
For instance?
Because they're traveling. Muskego has a senior taxi.
And they will come here?
They will come here, but they'll charge more.
Any others?
New Berlin has a taxi, but it has very limited hours. We supplement their taxi service. So they only do half times, and they only take people within the New Berlin area, and it's considered somewhat ineffective because the doctors, they can't go to St. Luke's, they can't even go to Waukesha Hospital, and they can't call in the afternoons. So they have to call within a small time frame. So we really have created a nice service for our families that can call us all day long, email us, and we do our best to slot them in exactly where they need to go, when they need to go.
And how does Muskego Senior Taxi compare to others in the area or across the region?
In what respect?
Size, operation, services, where are we at in comparison to others?
We're probably in the middle. There are a couple smaller ones. McWanago in our county is the biggest. They've expanded to wheelchair vans and a giant fleet of
And how did they do that?
they are servicing the schools and other entities.
So are they getting funding? Where's their funding coming from, though?
They're also getting the funding from the county, and they are always looking for different places like we are. It's always what we are starting to meet together, and they're always challenged to meet payroll. They're always scrambling. So
I guess my biggest concern is when I hear things like New Berlin, we're subsidizing New Berlin because they're smaller, and Waukesha County wants us to help them. That sounds like we're going way out over and above Muskego, and you're asking us to fund that.
Well, I'm not, because we haven't made a decision to do that. The New Berlin one is sort of like whoever asked me earlier. That helps fill our cars and bring in revenues when we're already out. So that's a win for us. That's a win-win, if you will. And we're meeting with the county to listen to what their needs are, and we have made no decisions. And their implication has been that they will make us more efficient by giving us more rides, but we're already at max, and so potentially more rides would just mean more costs going into Waukesha. But I don't know that yet, and I feel like we might want to be good county players, especially since we get that ADRC base every year. So,
And I understand this is a fabulous thing you guys do. My concern is, for me personally, this is a final hour, we need this, and we thought we had everything in place for the year, and now we're scrambling to try to figure out.
I apologize for that. I'm new to the process. I had sent a letter in April, which I was under the impression everybody had read and
Well, we
understood
had, but we
and
never
was
had
going to.
discussion, so we didn't see it as something that needed to happen this year, because we never had discussion on it when we had all our budget meetings.
Didn't even see it until later.
You know, it's,
I just think you have to lean a little more heavily on the county and maybe take a look at the scope and the range of where your taxis go. I'll give you an example. I take care of my father. I take him to all his appointments. When we relocated him to a assisted living area, we dropped St. Luke's in favor of West Dallas Memorial because it's it's an Aurora facility. They'll do the same things there. And maybe that type of contraction of your scope would be necessary
Sure.
in keeping the operation going.
And
As I understand this.
We do try to do that as much as possible, and because I have a background in health and senior services, I've been able to talk to our riders and say, those lab tests can now be done right here in Muskego. You don't have to go to St. Luke. So we have transitioned most of the people here. It's just for like certain specialists and so forth. So the rides are very infrequent to those areas.
When are you meeting with the county?
Well, we just had a meeting, and then we got an email that said the coordinator for this has resigned, and so they're looking for someone to replace the person who is working on that project. So there isn't another meeting set at this point.
so with McGonigal working with the schools as well, are they getting funding from the schools? I mean, is that something we should be looking at?
That's a good point.
They certainly are contracted with them in some way, and it's certainly something we could do, but at this point it would add costs. Like I said, we ride full all week long, all 4 vehicles. So,
Adding cost isn't always bad if you're going to add enough revenue. If you can add that and a little more revenue.
Well, are you already using
And right
people
now
from the
we're-
school?
we're-
You taking
we're-
people from the school district already?
we are licensed to take senior citizens and young adults with disabilities.
And are some of those in school, in the school system? Maybe you should be asking the school district as well for something if you're helping out
So we are
kids that are
taking.
in their programs.
We have taken the young people that are over 18, that are still in the high school, to their training programs. So we've worked with them in that way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There might be some money in their
He
budget.
takes children, is my understanding, and he has the
Well, I'm not talking about
wheelchair
Muskego, I'm
vans.
talking about you. If we're using anything with the school district, you should be asking them for some type of funding as well.
We
Oh,
don't take people from the schools.
Well, if we're taking, I read someone in there, they're taking children to jobs and stuff, I don't know. Are
they're
they in the
they're
school
adults, they're
district?
18 and over.
But you said they're in the school, still in the school district?
They are still in the high school.
That's my point, again. And then, are we working with New Berlin and asking them for any funding? Because if we're helping them out,
Well, we get
because
the
they're
revenue
limited there
from
and they're
those
twice the
rides.
size of us.
We get the revenue from their rides.
You mean just who pays for that?
It
mean
depends,
it could be
but the rider
$8?
with the county supplement or the young person with the long-term care insurance.
The ride pays don't pay for the full service, though. I mean, or we wouldn't, right? I mean, that's why you get all the other donations. A fare does not pay for the full.
That's my point.
It
Does New
depends
Berlin kick
on
anything
where
in?
they're going.
See, I would think New Berlin would, you should be able to tap into New Berlin as well if you're going into New Berlin. If they don't have a bigger service or a lot bigger area, they probably have funding available as well.
Well, their new director is actually planning to expand. So
Well,
she
planning
started
to
last year, and that's her goal. She met with me last week for ideas on how she could expand. And like I said, because I am at capacity, I'm not looking to expand.
But you just got
But
another car.
I will be asked.
How much expense is that other car going to use, and do we really need the other car at this point?
Well, the other car was a donation, and right now we're so busy that we don't have a car to trade out when something needs to go into the shop.
Oh, that way, but you're not going
So-
to use it as another car?
We could, but that hasn't
So
been
how much-
discussed
how much
at the
on an
board
average-
level yet.
How much on the average does a car cost a year to operate into your budget? I mean, if you didn't use that car, would that be taking money back out of your budget?
We would have to add insurance, which, since I haven't received the car yet, I haven't looked into, but it would be adding one car to the fleet.
Well, then you have the operating costs too. I'm just wondering if it's not needed and we're putting that in. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said about the 10,000, because you confused me, because you said that, I mean, we're giving 5,000 a year, right?
Yep.
And you said it was a month, and you said the 10,000 was a month, so I'm confused where.
No, I'm just
you're
saying that
talking.
my monthly costs are 3 times as much, so going from 5,000 to 15.
And then again, you didn't answer the question, is this a one-time $10,000, or is this ongoing?
I'm hoping this would be our annual funding moving forward from this year and forward, knowing we're going to have at least.
'Cause I'm going back to
It
what,
hasn't changed since 2006.
you know, well, I understand that, but it was set to a seed to get them self-funded.
Should we research that? To see if that was the intent of seed money? I don't know.
That's what,
It was. And Neil was, he's aware, he and I were both there, he knows that's what it was.
I mean, it's only $1,200 a month or whatever.
Jim was
you know,
here when
But if it's every year, it
taxi
keeps going up.
And that was the hope of the council. It wasn't stated that this is seed money and this is it. $5,000 was 10 years ago. What's inflation done? What's gas done? What's insurance done? What's vehicle maintenance done? All that's gone up in the past 10 years, and ridership has gone way up. We've been really serving this community to the hilt. Do you have folks? Do you have parents?
No, not anymore.
Okay. And were you driving them
Yes.
around all the time?
Yes.
Well,
Both-
you're an
both sides-
exception.
both
You're an
sides of the family,
exception.
yes.
With families, there's dynamics with families.
Well, I understand, I have many dynamics myself, and I did what I had to do, but I
Right,
understand
and
not
most
everybody
of us
does that.
do, but a lot of
That's right.
families
I
don't.
understand that. I'm not up here to argue, I'm up
Okay.
here to look at the
Well, I'm
dollar
making a
value
point that
and
you
what you're
didn't
doing
see.
with it.
I'm making a point that you didn't see, that there are family
No,
dynamics.
I can
where
see
you
that, I
can't get
understand that,
families
but people
involved.
need to step up too, you know,
Right.
where they can.
Right.
When they
And I
should, I
agree.
should say.
And I agree as well that businesses should get up and stand up as
Yeah.
well. There's businesses in the community that we take employees to, which are we all know that.
It helps them out, you're right.
Right. And they're not donating. What am I supposed to do with those folks?
Well, you can only ask.
It angers me to know.
No, I agree with you.
Right. And we're busting our butts and working and busting our heads, and, there's folks out there that are benefiting, and they're not coming forward and helping, including families that, Karen had said, we've got families that are helping. There's a good portion that aren't helping, and
really
wondering why we're charging.
And really, it's about the people that you are helping.
Even at that, both of you, one of our goals is with these young people is make them sufficient.
That's what you mentioned, right?
And if they're living at home and everybody's doing everything for them, they aren't becoming self-sufficient. So if mom and dad are taking you to work every day, you aren't learning how to make those arrangements for yourself. So you aren't fulfilling the goal of becoming as much of a person, as much of a whole as you can. So some of this, making the person make their own arrangements and making them get out of bed on time and getting there to meet your taxi on time is all part of the training that we're trying to give those children, those young adults. So it's not as much while yes, people have to step up, and everybody does step up for their family. Some of the people we take one way and they are picked up by another responsible person. But the thing is that this is the goal of trying to make these people, train these people to become whole. And that's
I'd like to weigh in on this, on those thoughts. A little different angle perhaps, but as communities have developed over the years, as things have come, this is a newer thing for us to contemplate. Once fire departments were new, once parks and recreation was new, even the overall concerns that we have in community services through public works and that kind of thing have changed over the history of the city. And so this is one thing that has come along now that we need to consider. Is it something we need to support and advocate for in our city? Or do we let it go out there and see if it can survive on its own? Is it something that we should be involved with or shouldn't be involved with? Can be a question that goes with it.
We are involved in it. We should be involved with it.
Well, when we provide rec programs or we have any kind of other services like that in our city, the approach might be different, but the needs are real in both cases. So I'm very much in favor of this, having worked with it some the time I was working with the taxi board there, and it makes sense to me that we should be increasing support of it.
I'm just glancing through the budget. I've circled some things. I mean, we're spending, where am I here? We're under parks. We're spending $51,250 on 50 cans and 40 tables. We're spending $92,000 on a gazebo. This is, and then do we not put this money into the senior taxi? So, I might sound like I'm against. I'm just trying to get the facts. Where this all came from. What was our sole purpose of doing this? What is our long-term commitment to doing this? I don't have a problem myself putting the money forward. I just have a problem if we have to keep increasing this all the time. I mean, if this is, to me, it sounds like senior taxi was set up to help the senior people, and now we're more past that. Not getting into why and who and what, because there's probably some things, if you told me, I probably would not like that you're servicing, but it's a good thing for the community. It is. I mean, I don't know why we should probably just come up with the $10,000. That's what I'm thinking, and you should go through your budget because. Make sure you know where you're at, what you need, and do you need the other car? And I mean, these are things you do every day. You know what you need to do. But if this is going to keep growing, you're talking about Muskego and stuff. They're probably $100,000 a year they're asking for. I don't know. New Berlin is 3 times the size of us
I'd like to
budget-wise, that they
interject-
should be giving us more money.
Whatever
know.
you guys decide on an amount, if you do an amount, I would like to suggest you really do it for just 1 year as
Yeah,
we
and
can
that's
work
my
with the
point.
county. Because, I mean, we don't know what each year looks like for us budget-wise
I was
and
going
with our
there,
levy
yeah.
limits.
I was going there, I think is
Thank you.
I'd like to see, that's why I asked, it was ongoing. You really couldn't give me dedicated, why, I mean, it's only $1,000 a month, but you couldn't really give me 100% answer, you know. Of course, you're not an accountant, so, I'd rather have you come back and look at it next year and come back to us, you know, I mean, you know, we do things, we just redid a library for $100,000, $200,000 for the children, you know? So what do we do for the people who've been living in their homes, paying taxes in this area and so on, so.
Yeah. Could I bring Sharon back up for a second? Of the things you mentioned as possible ways to look for money for this, can we use both and or whatever on this?
Well, I would caution against the levy, the unused levy capacity, because that's a one-time use. And I would keep it in reserve in case we have a shortage in future years and we need that money so that we do not have to go to referendum. So I would, if you want to budget for the additional 10,000, I would recommend reducing an expenditure someplace else. And then if need be, we do have
That's what I was
$80,000 of contingency.
No, I'd leave
So
that.
if you took it out of the road program and you needed to spend that 10,000, we could apply the contingency amount.
I wouldn't mess with the road program.
Well, then we need
I think
to come up
we
with.
should pull it out.
Reduce the road program?
Well, again, I
Sure
would
call.
not
We should be
recommend the
increasing the
levy.
road
I would
program.
not recommend.
Well, I
that
don't
unused.
recommend that
I
either.
really wouldn't. That really is to be used for essential services in an emergency situation.
I mean, there's gotta be something we
So-
can cut a couple dollars
But of
on.
these
Sharon, you're
possi-
saying we have $8,000 that we could,
80,000 for contingency,
Yeah, I'd leave that.
80,000.
80,000 for
Correct.
contingency.
So
Oh, you
what
said
I'm
80
saying
or
is
8?
80.
Oh, I thought you said 8.
80,000, yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm
Okay.
saying is even though you would reduce, I'm just looking at the road program because it's a large amount, it's an easy item to
That
look at.
includes like salt and everything, right? So if that, they get a big year for.
Right, so
right, yeah.
if it goes over, you know, it would still be within that budget category and we would utilize contingency. We have that money in place. It's not that Public Works could not spend the budget that's in there right now. It would just be a balancing mechanism at this point.
Where are we at for finishing this year?
What was that?
Where are we at for finishing this year on budget?
We're looking at a slight surplus again, just because of vacancies, but, well, actually, the surplus is really due to the overage we had in transportation aids in 2017. If you recall, last year, we had an additional $200,000 of transportation aids that came in at the last minute, and that's basically our overage. Otherwise, our budget, we're pretty much utilizing everything we budgeted.
But we're fairly on target this year.
We are.
Yeah. Okay. Again, back to my other question a moment ago. Could we use like a few thousand from one, a few thousand from another type of this idea, or
Well,
are they
that
exclusive?
changes all the categories
Yeah,
and.
can you pull from more than one
This would
category?
just be a quick, easy.
It's a lot of work for her to
Yeah,
go
that's
through
what
that for.
I'm just exploring it, just to know.
Well, I mentioned one thing, we're looking at 40 picnic tables at 1,000 apiece. So if we got 30 picnic tables, you
You're
have $10,000.
looking at a different fund.
that's
You're looking at the
capital
parks
budget
fund.
money.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to look strictly in the operating budget. We cannot utilize special revenue money for this.
Probably did a circle in that one.
I think with it, think that we could certainly take it from the 80,000 contingency, couldn't we? I mean,
No, because we're required per our policy, 0.5% of total expenditures, and 80,000 is it. We're at the bare minimum. Otherwise, our auditors will write us up because we're going against our fund balance policy.
So the bottom line is pretty much you have to take it from what's easiest is from the transportation fund, or the road program fund, and then we hope and cross our fingers that we don't need that 10,000 there, and if we do, then you pull it from contingency. Isn't that what you're saying?
We sound like the state of Wisconsin now.
Oh, boy.
Well, I know, I'm not comfortable with it, it's your call.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable at this moment either with taking money from the road projects.
No, I'm not either.
I think the senior taxi's got to look at maybe consolidating with a New Berlin or with a McGuanago. I know some of the fire departments recently have done the same thing as a cost-saving measure.
So as the police departments with some of the training and some of the helping out in between with different functions.
Right, and lean more heavily on the county. I mean, it seems like we're subsidizing funds from the county that they won't impart to you for the work that you're doing. That and taking a look at what the costs are for social trips and things like that, and maybe put a premium price on those particular items. Take a look at your cost structure as well.
My take on watching the operation, well, I was working, as the liaison to the taxi, is all of that has been constantly there, and it has been considered and addressed and so forth the best they can. It's not that they haven't been proactive in those areas.
So we only need to move on, so I don't know if there's a motion for something, or...
Do we take a motion in committee of the whole on the budget? Do we take a motion
Yes,
on
you
this?
can, a motion and a second, and...
Don't we have to know where it's going to come from?
Well, you have to be specific, yes, you have to be specific with your motion.
Yeah.
We're going to do that in committee of the whole?
Yes.
Okay. I would make a motion that we increase those by $10,000, and where's the money coming from then?
You have to make that recommendation. Where's it coming from?
Well, let's start with the road program.
Okay, we're looking for a second.
Second.
Any more discussion?
What,
So you're saying for just 2019?
One time.
Any other discussion?
Pardon me?
I asked if there's any other discussion, so I'm guessing not. Okay, all those in favor?
So you roll call or not?
Aye.
Do you want to
I didn't hear. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you get who that was? Or do you need to raise a hand?
Want to raise a hand?
All that your hand, please raise your hands.
Come on, raise your hand.
I think we need to pull it from somewhere
We have
else.
3.
I mean, I don't mind bringing this back up, but we should talk about it before we pull it from the.
The tie, I won't, because this can go to council after this then, so.
Say that again?
It's a tie, so it'll go to council.
Okay.
Next time.
Or somebody can reconsider if you give me a minute. I'm just trying to look through this. I don't know where else, unless Sharon can help me out here, I don't know where else we can pull the money from, other than the roads. I mean, that's my whole holdup is I prefer not to pull it from the roads.
Additional research can be done, and you could leave the budget as it is, and if you decide later on you want to fund additional money, you can do that through Finance Committee down the road.
There you
'Cause
go.
we've done that for other items. We've
where does that
gone
leave
above
hers?
and beyond the
So
budget.
in other words, there'll be nothing specifically stated within this 19 budget, if approved as is, for this purpose, other than the 5,000 that's already there. And then we can come back and she can look elsewhere, and you can, Finance Committee can authorize it, and then council can, or they can recommend it and council can authorize it to come from another area that hopefully she can locate.
Because we're not on, when are we going to do the final?
Because it wouldn't be
approval?
till January 1 anyhow,
When is the final approval of this going to,
the next council
October
meeting.
next council
23rd?
meeting, so we can have that ready by then?
Do we
No,
have to amend the
it
budget
doesn't.
then?
No, I'm not making it clear, am I?
No.
And the budget, just, nothing goes in there more than the 5,000. And then Sharon's going to look. You can adopt it at the next meeting and it won't matter. She's going to look and hopefully find another source
Well,
of
and
funding.
additional research can be done,
Yes.
because maybe there are
Which she can
other
answer to you at the
funding
next meeting.
sources. Well, the county or
And that too, correct.
what other communities are doing.
No matter what, if you put something in now, no check is going to be cut for that additional amount until after the first of the year. So we have months to research. I'm happy to meet with Karen and the county, City of New Berlin, and whoever else, and work some things out as well.
Does that sound good to you?
And she'll look for other.
I know you want money right now, but does it sound like something that's acceptable for, I mean, I don't want to put the service in any jeopardy or anything. I want to see it continue.
I mean, to be honest, it does continue the burden on us when we're ready killing ourselves to look for donations and everything else.
But now you're going to have a mayor of a city help meet with counties and stuff. Is that going to be?
That would be great for 2020. Do you know what I mean? Because it'll take time for us to have those.
And we're not saying we're going to walk away from it. We're saying we're going to look for the money. We have to look for it. We weren't ready for this. So we have to look for it.
So as Sharon was saying, as
But we
we
still
work,
might come out of the road program.
you can still do that even after the budget's adopted, is what Sharon's saying, through authorization by recommendation of finance and then council. So we can still move that money and do it later, but in the interim, I can work with them and,
Because we didn't vote no, just so you know that. Right? That's
yeah,
correct?
it just failed in a tie, so it's kind of a failure, but,
Remember missing here too.
and I know that, remember,
Yeah, I could, but I'm just trying to get a feel for, I'm kind of both sides. I'm not going to let you guys,
I mean, we all know it's a great program, but I'll remind you too, the county had significantly, or they had cut back on their funding, and then I contacted them and we got it back reinstated. So I mean, I'd like that opportunity to work with them a little more too.
See, we're not saying no. We're just saying we need to find the money. And we can't, this was, like I said, none of us had any conversation about this prior to tonight, and we're getting ready to close our budget.
and
So,
Submit a letter, and I was hoping that people would be.
well, nobody ever brought it up for conversation, so it never happened.
yeah, and I understand,
So
you
we need
don't
to
understand the
find-
process, so you kind of got lost in
That's
that.
that's
That
probably my
happens.
fault.
Well, not even that, that happens, we're still learning a lot of the processes, ourselves, so I can see somebody who's not involved all the time, that can happen.
And my concern with the further conversations with New Berlin and some of these other organizations, they are very.
At the end of their budgets and everything too, I know.
They're rather unsophisticated, and they're struggling to keep board members and staff and volunteers, and they're just, you know what I mean?
But Waukesha
I'm
County
not talking
knows how
about
this
their
works.
taxi group,
Right.
I know,
the
I'm
city
talking about
direct.
Berlin, for example.
Right.
Right.
Well, let me ask Sharon, you'll be able to find $10,000 somewhere in here, you think? Or are you going to go back to the road fund? Is that going to be the easiest thing?
She needs a time to look.
I understand, I'm just asking for her opinion, because she's pretty good on what she does.
I mean,
I mean,
there's
I'm not
always
putting you on the
places
spot,
to find
just asking for-
10,000, but, council also has to keep in mind, next year, the capital budget is going to be significant with the other road project coming on Hillendale. And that was something I was going to discuss a little bit this evening, where we're going to have to come up with significant funding, and we may have to tap into the general fund reserves, because I'm sure council does not want to borrow any more money for capital projects. So, that's just something else to keep in mind. We would need some time, and, 10,000 isn't a large chunk of money, to be searching for, but we're going to need a fairly large amount to fund the Hillendale project with all the other capital projects coming on board. So it's something to keep in mind.
I think it's okay.
But it didn't help me much.
Okay. So,
Okay,
think
I'm gonna rescind my vote. I'm gonna go and change it if we bring it back on the floor.
well, you can't.
You have to remotion.
That's what I said,
You
we
have
bring
to-
it back on the floor.
Can they do that? Okay, then a fresh motion.
This one dies now.
Go ahead, Neil, make your motion.
For the road program?
Yeah.
Yeah. Make motion that we change the funding for the senior taxi from 5,000 to 15,000
For one
for 1
time.
year, and the additional funds to come this year from the road program.
Second.
Second, oh.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. It's 4. Those opposed? 2. Okay, it is approved to come, from here, it's never final till the budget's final. So I always got to make that clear.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it
just
on
so you
behalf
know-
of the families of Muskego.
Next year, though, more details.
Okay.
We'll need more, if you're gonna come back and ask for more money, or it's tight.
Yeah, and maybe you'd be willing to meet with me. I mean, I have my budget here, but I don't know how much information, do you know what I mean? That you want at any given moment. I have all sorts of historical data and documentation, so.
Why,
more
you just, because you
operational
asked for a round number, that's why I'm saying, we're just throwing numbers out there.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
was
thank you.
Thank you.
$10,041.
There you go.
Okay. We're quite a ways behind here. So our next, now we got to get into the operating budget for 2019.
Yay.
The rest of the budget.
Rest of what we were here.
So I take it, show of hands, with the shifting, I should say, of that 10 grand, unless we can always still have discussions. So I'm looking for a show of hands to move forward with the budget, including what you just added. It's unanimous. So is there any discussion? No? Okay. We'll move forward with that.
Can I just ask one? It's just a
Yep.
minor question. Last year, there was a request to scale down the budget presentation, and if the council is okay with that for this budget presentation, we could summarize it even further if everybody is happy with that.
No. I don't think that's a good idea.
No?
I think
Okay.
we need.
There was a request
I
last
think
year
we need as
when we
much
went through it,
information as
so.
we can.
Now, what do you mean scaled down? Like,
Yeah,
what are you
what would
gonna,
the scale down be?
you give us an outline versus?
Presentation, yeah.
I mean, I suppose we could start that way.
You would
and-
give all the same information?
Yeah, it'd just be much more summarized. We were asked last year to reduce, just to go through a brief summary, so I was just asking
Rather than
council if
page
they
by
wanted us
page, you
to
mean?
reduce the presentation time.
Will we usually go page by page? Is that what we usually do?
We could keep it as is, that's fine,
I
Then you'll
think,
be reminded, we can talk about it
That's
after.
fine.
That would be better.
that's fine.
remember, some of us are very visual, and your little bar
Sure.
graphs and
No,
pie charts are
It was a request last year, and I'm just
great.
responding to that.
I
that's
know.
all.
Okay. And then we have the water and sewer utility budgets.
Basically, we will, just a recap, we are not raising rates for the sewer or the water utility. Water utility is still recovering nicely. At the end of 2019, we are projecting our working capital to grow to $640,000, which should be the recommended level. So everything is going well in both utilities. If anybody has any questions on the specific accounts,
Was a rate increase requested?
no rating increases, no.
No.
And I did reach out to the Public Service Commission, and we are still not qualified
Okay.
for a simplified rate case because our revenues are coming in at a sufficient level to cover the expenditures.
Any other questions? So motion to approve these two budgets?
Move to approve. Motion to
Second.
approve.
Okay, any other discussion?
Second.
The second's already in.
Who was the first and second?
Kevin and Eileen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
They said it.
Any other discussion? Raise your hand if you're in favor. It's unanimous. Okay, now we have health insurance options update.
Okay, again, I do not have good news. Our experience levels actually went up over the last few months. So what we have been informed, if the council were to choose to transition to a calendar year renewal, meaning January 1 through 12/31 versus a renewal of July 1st, rates would go up an additional 5%, whether you keep the current plan in place or you transition to a HSA. If you transition to an HSA for a 6-month renewal, keeping our renewal July 1st, the amounts that were presented back in June would remain exactly the same. So all the information I gave you a few months ago did not change. So the options, there were 3 options for HSA, option number 1, 2, and 3. And if you have, does anyone need handouts?
No.
Or,
It's on
No.
the thing here, isn't it?
Yes.
On the last pages.
Yep.
If you spin all the way down to the last pages on your iPad.
So it's identical information that was presented. There are option 1, 2, and 3. The first one, non-embedded, and option 2 and 3 were embedded. The embedded plan is what we have today, and I believe council would prefer to keep the embedded plan. And the definition is actually on page 2 at the very bottom, in case you need to reference that. So the savings for each option are on the summary cover page. The first one would be $374,937. Second plan, $267,682. And the third one, $315,864. This does not include any funding for the HSA plan. If the council did want to transition to the HSA and also fund the plan, that would be the third option below on the summary page, and you can see the savings or cost listed in the chart. So basically, you have a couple of options: either leave the plan in place with no change through June 30th, and we would hope that our experience level would go down by then so that we would not incur a 5% increase. Or the council could choose to transition to a health savings account.
The HSA seemed to make a great deal of sense. I was kind of focused on option number 2. It's an embedded program. It appears that the deductibles are a bit less. Out-of-pockets are slightly more. I do have some questions, however, where it shows maximum out-of-pocket single in, and I'm assuming in means in the network. It shows a $0.
That's because all those go away with the health savings account versus the health reimbursement.
Okay, so that all comes out of that, okay. And then the co-pays I see it's all deductible on co-insurance and that.
Correct.
Okay. But there seems to be a significant savings in that particular. And providing lower premiums for us and for the employee. It appears the exposure is very similar to what the exposure is now for our employees. Is that correct? Am I reading this correctly?
Yep, it would be very similar. Mhm. And then would you be considering funding the HSA then as well?
Because that's the part that costs us.
Right.
That's the big hit.
Yep.
And you'll have very, very unhappy employees
you
if
will.
you don't. Very.
Yes.
This will be a shock to their system.
So if you're focused on option 2, if you look at the summary on page 1, if you were to fund it 100% compared to what we have under the health reimbursement, it would actually cost the city about $60,000 more. You would not recognize the savings until you started to reduce that down to 75%, which would be a $22,000 savings and so on.
You're talking 100% across the board change, right? See, and I'm thinking that we should be looking at having it as an option for people to go into HSAs. I think that's what we talked about, Bob and I were talking about, not doing a total change. We're looking at giving people an option. I mean, I think if you're 21 years old and you're healthy, you want to go with HSA, but if you're, 55 or older, you might want to stay with the other plan. I mean, it's just the balance of care for yourself, how it works, in life.
But again, the negative to implementing the dual plan is just what you said. The individuals who would not transition to the HSA, those premiums would skyrocket under that plan because It would be the individuals who probably needed more medical.
It wouldn't be funded enough. You'd have a
Correct.
huge hit. It would have to be an all or
Because
nothing.
there's not enough people involved, is that the
Yep,
reason?
that's right.
Because I say a lot of companies, do that. I don't know if it's because they have more people working for them, that
Probably.
If you want
they have
half
a
the
larger
employees, you
pool.
leave it alone.
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if we want to do 100% HSA.
But I think at this point, I'd like to see us just keep the plan as is till June. Let's reevaluate. That'd be my mention.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I think let's move forward on that.
I mean, maybe as this federal health care changes, if it does,
Yeah,
it might be better options to have some
no.
HSA people on and some off, I don't know. I don't know where it's all going.
Okay, can I have a motion for leaving it as is till June 30th?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Okay. Communications and miscellaneous business, nothing other than, next is the budget adoption meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. We are adjourned. Again, we have to wait. Now we get to do all the fancy stuff again.
Sure.
Common council for 10-9.